YouTubers, welcome to another episode of Malcontent Corner, the corner where I hope to enrich in your lives by sharing with you things that I've learned in the course of mine. Now, if you watch my channel at all, you'll know that a couple videos ago I did a video on how to polish up your headlights so that they're nice and crystal clear. Last video I did a video on how to keep your headlights looking nice and clear. And the primary reason for that is because, as I said, the weather's starting to change. Those of us in the northern hemisphere are starting to run into the time where the days get shorter and the nights get longer, and because of that we rely on our headlights more often than not. But this is going to be more of a PSA about cars in general. Now, I'm old enough that you dealt with carbureted cars. It was quite common for the car when it was cold and warming up to stall out. And if you were driving, you had power brakes and power steering. You had to use the Armstrong, steering method of using your arms. And if you went to step on the brakes, you had to really push down really hard on them. Today's drivers, you don't have any of that. You're spoiled. You have fuel injection that fires up at the drop of a hat and just typically runs flawlessly. People don't think of maintenance on their cars like they used to. They just don't. Old cars used to have points. You used to have those serviced. You used to have to change your oil every 3,000 miles. You had carburetors that would flame out or sputter out when the engines were cold. Today's cars are really low maintenance in comparison, but the negative of that low maintenance is what leads me to today's PSA. And that is the lights on your car. Now, I'm going to start off from the front and work my way back, but if you are driving and you notice your headlights aren't bright, the answer is not to drive around with your high beams on. This is especially true of people who have a headlight out, and instead of replacing it, they just drive with the high beam on. And those of you in oncoming traffic, you know what I'm talking about, because you're driving and then you're like this because you can't really see the road because some joker is driving down the road with one high beam on. If you're watching me, don't be that joker. Just don't. I'm calling you a joker here. I have other choice words for you. If you notice your headlights aren't as bright as they should be, take the time and take a look and see if they're crappy looking, like I showed in the headlight restoration video. If the lenses are nice and clear, just make sure both your headlights are working. If they're both working and you're still having trouble seeing, go see your ophthalmologist. Make sure you don't have a cataract forming. But the answer is not to drive around with your high beams on. Now, I get it. You may be driving and you have a headlight that goes out and you're like, crap, I can't really see the road. That's fine. I get that. Stuff happens all the time. Just do everyone a favor, though. Turn your high beam to low beam when traffic's coming. I can guarantee you between their lights and your lights, something's probably not going to run out in front of you that neither one of you will see. But I can guarantee you, if you're blinding the oncoming driver because you refuse to put your high beam down low, yeah, that's not a good situation because you're effectively blinding one driver. So, again, don't drive around with your high beams on. If your lenses are fogged up, polish them up. If you have a headlight out, replace it. It's just common sense. Now, another thing on cars that they have that kind of drives me nuts, that are out on occasion, but it's not a huge deal, are parking lights. Those are the yellow lights up front. A lot of cars now, they use the angel eyes, the LEDs. But older cars usually have an orange blinker light, right? If you have it on park, they're lit, and when you turn the turn indicator, it flashes. Check those. Make sure those are lit. Obviously, if one of those are out, it's not a big deal. It's not really a huge safety thing. And that leads me to the side indicators. They're usually orange up front and red in the back. Those go out a lot of time. People are not aware of it. Obviously, it's not a big deal if they're not working, but it really looks neat and kind of sets the car apart at night if they are working. So take your time, maybe take a look at those and see if they are working. Now, that's going to get me to the back end of the car, which is where my second big pet peeve comes in. One is the headlight and the high beam. But I'm old enough to remember when Congress passed the law mandating that cars had to have that third brake light. And as a younger buck, I thought, well, that's just stupid. You know, I get it. You know, some had some, you know, back especially in the 70s, some brake lights were low. Some, you know, some were lower than others. The effectiveness of the third brake light is that's supposed to be at eye level so you can see it. But the problem that I have, and I'm thankful, I guess I'm thankful for that law, although personally I'm really not big into government mandates, is that I don't know how many cars I see driving around and they put on their brakes, and that is the only brake light that works. Oh my God. Out of all the brake lights you have, the only one that works is that center one. Look, I know you may be cocky enough to think, well, that's okay if nobody sees my brake lights, because if they slam into me, well, I'll just sue them and I'll get a bunch of money. I'm here to tell you there is no amount of money in the world worth a bad back. And those of you who have had back problems or have back problems, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There is no money in the world that is worth a bad back. None. And I guarantee you, you may be cocky and thinking, well, I'm going to sue them and get money. It's not going to do you a damn bit of good if you're spending all your money on doctor bills and pain meds and everything else to try to get your back squared away. So do yourself a favor. Take the time it takes, however much it may be, to check your brake lights. Now, the best way to do it, obviously, is to have either you or somebody in the car pressing on the brake pedal and somebody behind you or yourself looking and seeing what's working. Failing that, you can also do just kind of a general maintenance, or I should say a general look at them. If you just look behind you in the rearview mirror and see what seems to be lit. If you're looking in a rearview mirror and it seems bright in the center and on the right, but not on the left, odds are you have one that's out. Now this, and when I mean look in the mirror, back up against a wall. If you have a car behind you, you can use that to kind of reflect the light. Flat surfaces are obviously better than curved surfaces. You know, taller vehicles are going to work better than shorter. But, you know, you can do that. Another thing you can do is if you're parked along a building of some sort that has a giant plate glass window, if you look, you're going to see your reflection in that plate glass window. At least a lot of times you will. You can look at the back end of the car and see if you have a brake light, at least on the passenger side. And if you happen to be parking on the left side, you can look in that mirror, or that window, I should say, and use that as a mirror and take a look. But do yourself a favor. Take the time to make sure your the lenses are clear. Make the time to make sure your headlights are working. Take the time to make sure your brake lights and tail lights are working. It drives me nuts when where I see a person with a headlight out driving with a high beam on, or only one brake light, or even worse, I've seen a couple where they've had no brake lights. That is a dangerous situation. And another thing you might want to check on, depending on the state you're in, make sure your license plate light works. There are a lot of states have on the books laws that said you have to have your license plate illuminated. Some states that I've seen, they're a little more picky about that than others. And it can be a reason for you to get pulled over. So unless you really like getting pulled over by the cops, do yourself a favor, make sure your brake lights work, make sure your tail lights work, make sure that license plate light works. Now here's one little tip for you that may apply to you. This is especially true of those of you that are driving around and you don't have any dash lights. First off, shame on you for not having dash lights. You're not going to know how fast you're going, so you should have dash lights, period. But if you know, let's say all of a sudden all your dash lights went out, check. You're probably going to find your tail lights are out too. It has been my experience with cars that when the fuse for the tail lights go out, it also takes out your dash lights. So again, if you have no dash lights, and I'm not saying most of them are burned out and you're down to 2. I'm saying you have none and they just went out like that, check. You'll probably find out you're not going to have any tail lights. So anyways, thank you for listening to my rant during my PSA. I hope you find it of some use. If not, just consider it a friendly reminder to go out and just do some maintenance on your car. Do everyone a favor so that we can all make it home safe and sound and make it into the year 2021. As always, I thank you for listening to me. I hope to see you back again here in the not too distant future. And until that time, ciao!